Hey guys, it's Missy and welcome back to Books and a Baby. So today's video is going to be the mid-year book freakout tag. So let's get started. Okay, so question number one is the best book you read so far in 2022, and for this I have a few different options, but the first one is The Christie Affair by Nina DeGarmont. This is a fictionalized account of what happened when Agatha Christie went missing for those 11 days that she went missing in her actual life, and this is told from the perspective of Christie's husband's mistress. I thought that this was such a fun ride, and I just really enjoyed my whole experience with reading this book. So this is by far one of my favorites of this year. Then we have The Club by Ellery Lloyd. This is about this elitist club that all of these celebrities are going to, and they open this island. And during opening weekend, there are a few people who end up dying. And the whole time we're trying to figure out what happened and who killed who, and it was a wild ride, and I've loved every second of it. Then we have When You Get the Chance by Emma Lord, and this is about a girl who lives in New York and who is obsessed with musical theater, and she ends up finding out that her dad actually is kind of a reverse Mamma Mia situation, where her dad was with a few different women during the time that she was conceived, and she's trying to figure out who her actual mother is. This was such a fun book. I got this as a NetGalley ARC, and I read it and just was blown away by how much of the musical theater aspects were related into this, and the whole Mamma Mia vibe. I loved it so much. Then we have This Might Hurt by Stephanie Warble. This is a dark thriller about a cult, and this was so good. So the premise of this story is our main character's sister has gone to this retreat center, and they stay for like 6 months at a time, and they have no contact with the outside world, and she gets this weird email about her sister finding out a secret that she'd been keeping, and she goes to investigate and try to figure out what's happening with her sister. And I thought that the resolution to this was just fantastic. I had such a fun time reading this one, and all of these books are some of my favorites of this year. Question number two is the best sequel that you've read so far in 2022. And for me, I have More Than We Can Tell by Brigid Kemmerer. This is the second book in the Letters to the Lost series, and this is like really like a companion novel to Letters to the Lost, but this one was my favorite of the two. I loved this one so much, and if you haven't read the first one, I don't want to give away too much of who this one's about because you find out a lot about him in the first book, but this was so good and I loved it. Then we have The Grim Grotto by Lemony Snicket. This is, I want to say, the 8th or 9th book in the series of Unfortunate Events, and I have loved reading this series. I restarted it actually a couple years ago, I think, and I still haven't finished it yet, but I am enjoying just picking up one of these every once in a while to kind of give myself like a palate cleanser. This little middle grade novel, they just bring so much joy to my life. And then I think probably my favorite sequel that I've read this year is The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the second book in the Inheritance Games series, and where we go with the Hawthorne brothers and Avery, I just love it. I love it, love it, love it, and I cannot wait for the next one to come out. But those were some of my favorite sequels that I've read this year. Okay, question number 3 is new release that you haven't read yet but you want to, and I have 4 of those. These are actually all 4 arcs that I've gotten from NetGalley, and I still haven't gotten to them yet, but I want to. These are top priority books for me. So starting off, we have The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. And this is the story of our main character, Frida, who's struggling because she doesn't have a career worthy of her Chinese immigrant parents. And she can't persuade her husband, Gus, to leave his mistress. So she only finds solace with her daughter, Harriet, until Frida has a very bad day. And the synopsis says, the state has its eye on mothers like Frida, the ones who check their phones, letting their children get injured on the playground, who let their children walk home alone. Because of one moment of poor judgment, a host of government officials will now determine if Frida is a candidate for a big brother-like institution that measures the success or failure of a mother's devotion. Faced with the possibility of losing Harriet, Frida must prove that a bad mother can be redeemed, that she can learn to be good. So this just sounds so good because as a mom myself, you know, sometimes you just look at your phone or things happen, and I don't think that makes you a bad mother. But this book, the synopsis just pulled me in, and I cannot wait to pick it up. Then we have The Silent Unseen by Amanda McCrenna. And this is a historical thriller set in July of 1944, where we have a 16-year-old Maria, who's making her way home after years of forced labor in a Nazi Germany, only to find her village destroyed and her parents killed in a war between the Polish resistance and the Ukrainian nationalists. To Maria's shock, the local resistance unit is commanded by her older brother, Tomik, who she thought was dead. He is now a silent unseen, a special operation agent with an audacious plan to resist a new and even more dangerous enemy sweeping in from the east. So I like that this is like a historical fiction set around World War II, but not just about World War II, that this is actually about the Polish resistance and the Ukraine government, and it just sounded super interesting. I have started this one, but I haven't gotten very far, and I'm super excited to continue onto this one. Then we have The Violin Conspiracy by Brendan Solcombe, and this is about a Black classical musician's desperate quest to recover his lost violin on the eve of the most prestigious musical competition in the world. So that right there was like the tagline of the synopsis, and I just was like, yes, give it to me. I love violins. I always wanted to learn how to play the violin, but I never got the chance, and I just think that the violin is so pretty. All right, and then finally we have Red Cicada by Greg Luke, and this is a book that is about our 28-year-old Elena Baker, who like just all of a sudden immediately starts having these intense flashes of light and pressure, and she ends up like falling out or passing out and ends up in the hospital, and they find like a thing underneath her skin, like implanted in her head, and the government and all of these people are after her, and her dad had something to do with it. And that's all I really know, and that's all I want to know because it sounds so good. Okay, question number 4 is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And I do have 3. So the first one is the one that is actually coming out next week, and that is Locklands by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the 3rd book in the Founders trilogy, and I am super excited to read this one. I have an arc, and I'm hoping to get it completed before the release date. If I don't, I will hopefully have it read soon after, but we'll see. This is the 3rd book in the series though, so I don't want to tell you what it's about because it could be spoilery. But the first book is about our main character, who is a thief, and in this world there is a magic where you kind of write ruins on things, and that makes them believe that they can do things. So you can tell a rock it's as light as a feather, and it will be super easy to lift and everything. You can tell something that has wheels that it's moving, and it will actually move. It's just interesting. And in the first book, our main character finds this special item that actually has a bit of a personality, and it's super interesting. I'm really looking forward to rereading the first 2 books and then moving on to this one. Then we have Haven by Emma Donoghue. So 3 men vow to leave the world behind them. They set out in a small boat for an island their leader has seen in a dream, with only faith to guide them. What they find is the extraordinary island known as Skeel Michael. And that's all I really know or want to know. And then finally, we have Night of the Raven, Dawn of the Dove by Rita Moroder. Let's see, Marodera, maybe. This is a young adult fantasy, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but the cover is stunning. Stunning. And I got this as an ARC basically because of the cover. I don't know much about it at all, but the cover is gorgeous and I cannot wait to read it. Question number 5 is your biggest disappointment, and for me, I have 3 to talk about, but one is actually the biggest disappointment, but my honorable mentions, because I've heard so much about these authors that I really thought I was gonna enjoy their works, but it just didn't happen quite as much as I would have liked. So the first honorable mention is Bloody Summer by Carmen Maria Machado. This is a short novella from the Trespass collection, and I listened to the audiobook and I thought it was okay, but it really didn't work for me. And it was supposed to be horror. I didn't get it, so I gave it 2 stars, but it didn't work for me. And I was disappointed because so many people love Carmen Maria Machado that I was like, I have to love this. I have to. And I just didn't. So that one was the first one. And then my second honorable mention is actually Inseparable by Simone de Beauvoir, who was translated by Sandra Smith, and I listened to the audiobook of this one as well, and I thought the audiobook was done well, but this is a very short novel, and it was like letters between these 2 women who were in love with each other, and it just didn't feel like I got enough from the story. I did end up giving this 2.5 stars. I read this for the BookTube prize, and I just didn't love it the way that everyone else seems to. I thought that the writing was beautiful, but it just didn't work for me at all, and I was quite disappointed. And then the last one, which actually I just finished, is The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaeke Emeze. I was just disappointed. This book, I have heard nothing but good things about this, and I was just highly disappointed because so many people have loved it, and I feel like I'm so far from the main crowd on this one, and that's okay because everybody is allowed to their own opinions. But this is a story about Vivek, and he ends up dying, and this is the story kind of like explaining what happened. And the biggest problem that I had with this book was the pacing, and there wasn't a whole lot of plot other than like Vivek's family trying to figure out what happened to him. And then when we get the resolution at the end, it's just kind of like, really, this is all that happened? And then there was some incest, which just really brought that rating down for me. I did not approve of that. That's just really not something I want to read about, and I just didn't like it. So I was very disappointed that I didn't like this book as much as everybody else did. So question number 6 is your biggest surprise of this year, and I also have 3 for this to talk about. The first one being 3 O'Clock in the Morning by Gianrico Figlio. I probably butchered that, and I do apologize. And this one is also a translated work. I'm not seeing the translator on this, so I do apologize. But this is a story about a young boy who has a medical condition where I think it's some form of epilepsy, and this treatment that he's going through, he has to stay up for, I think it was 48 hours or 72 hours, and him and his dad go on this kind of like adventure. And well, I didn't think this was like the best book ever written or anything, but it did surprise me how much I enjoyed it, because it just didn't seem like, from the description, something that I would be super interested in. But I actually enjoyed it quite a lot. I loved seeing the father-son dynamic, and just enjoyed following along with them on their little adventures while they were trying to stay awake for, I think it was 48 or 72 hours, which was just interesting to watch. Then we have This Might Hurt by Stephanie Warble. I thought I was gonna like this book. Obviously, I requested it as an ARC, but I was just surprised at how much I loved this book. Like, this book is what solidified the fact that I love cult books. So I was just surprised at how much I loved this one, because I definitely thought I was gonna like it, but I didn't know I was gonna love it. And this is the one book that I am like recommending to everyone right now, and I just love it. And then the third one is The Maid by Nita Prose, and this story just, there were a bunch of people who talked about it on BookTube, and I thought I was gonna like it. It's not my normal kind of like mystery, and I loved every second of reading this book. It was just so good. So yeah, those are the 3 books that very much surprised me. So question number 7 is favorite new author, and for me that is Nita Prose, who wrote The Maid, and Stephanie Warble, who wrote This Might Hurt. I will read anything that these two put out. I loved their books so much that they have me in their grips now. I will read anything that they put out. So yeah, those are my 2 new favorite authors. Okay, so newest fictional crush, I would have to say, like, I know I read the first book last year, but I was not in love with any of the brothers from the Inheritance game in that book. But in the Hawthorne Legacy, they've pulled me in. I love the Hawthorne brothers. They're my new favorite crushes. I am obsessed with them, and I cannot wait to read the 3rd book. Okay, question number 9 is your newest favorite characters, and for me that would be Molly from The Maid and Millie from When You Get the Chance. Both of these characters were so funny. I loved both of these characters so much for different reasons. Molly, because she is just so different and trusting, and it played to a part of me that I always feel a little awkward about, is because I do feel like I'm super trusting as well. But at the same time, like, I was seeing these people treat her badly, and I was just like, do not hurt Molly. She is my baby. And then Millie, I loved just because of how over the top she was. She was a full-on musical theater fanatic, and I found that very fun to experience. So yeah, those are my 2 new favorite characters. So question number 10 is a book that made you cry, and for this it would be More Than We Can Tell by Brigid Kemmerer. This book is so sad in some parts, and it was just an emotional ride, and I felt for these teens so much that this book definitely made me cry. Okay, question number 11 is a book that made you happy, and for this I'm gonna go with Wonder by R.J. Palacio. This was just a chef's kiss, gorgeous children's middle grade novel about a kid who has like a deformity, and him going to school and getting friends and just experiencing life, and I thought it was fantastic and loved it. And it made me so happy to see these kids who accepted him, and as a mom that just made me very happy. It did. Okay, question number 12 is the most beautiful book you've bought this year, and my most recent haul, it was from Ollie's, and I got Saint X by Alexis Shatakin, and I just think this is gorgeous. Like, all of the colors and things, it's just super pretty. And then I got The Wangs versus the World by Jade Chang. I also think like this gold and like red and pink was really pretty. And then I got Mrs. Everything by Jennifer Weiner, and I think this cover is really pretty. So yeah, those are the 3 that I just thought were the prettiest that I have bought this year. And finally, number 13 is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? So these are some of the ones that I just want to get through by the end of the year. So definitely 28 Summers by Ellen Hildebrand. This one I am currently reading, and I just want to get this one done. I borrowed it from my mom, and I'm very much enjoying it. Then we have The Ruin of Kings by Jen Lyons. This is the start of a epic fantasy series, and the dragon on this cover just is my favorite thing. I think it's so cool, and I do want to start this one. And then The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is another fantasy series that I want to get started, but this first book is one that I definitely want to get read before the end of the year. And finally, Dark Dawn by Jay Kristoff. This is the last book I need to finish a series, and I want to be able to finish the series. Sorry, I'm filming this and I have Becca Sprints on in the background, and she just came back on from the sprints and scared the crap out of me. I thought there was somebody in my house. Okay, so Dark Dawn is the conclusion to the Nevernight trilogy, and I definitely want to get to this one before the end of the year. So those are all the books to answer my mid-year book freakout tag. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you can see when I post new videos. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!